The story begins in a magical world shared by 9 races. Dragonutes, elves, onests, dwarves, demons, dark elves, centaurs, beastfolk, and humans, from whom a young adventurer called Light was born. Wanting to give his family a better life, Light says goodbye to his hometown and sets out to explore for money and power. After reaching a big city, Light gets shoved around by the crowd, but he continues searching for the Adventurers Guild. When he finally enters the guild, he introduces himself to the receptionist, who asks if he wants to register as a fresh adventurer. As he nods, she explains that he'll start from the lowest F rank and then asks if he has a special ability. Light responds that he has an unlimited gacha ability, which allows him to roll for random cards and summon them. To demonstrate, he summons a broken fork in front of her, leaving the receptionist completely speechless. Embarrassed, Light tries to act like silverware isn't the only thing he can summon, but his next rolls just give him a bunch of rotten snacks. Light feels disappointed that his luck has decided to betray him at the worst possible moment, and the receptionist confirms that he deserves the pathetic F rank. After receiving his adventurer's card, he asks her for some quests, and she tells him to check the guild's job board. At the mention of job posts, Light looks awkward, and the receptionist quickly realizes that he can't even read the board. Feeling pity for her uneducated fellow human, she kindly reads out the job posts for him. Feeling excited to finally earn some real money, Light happily accepts the boring tasks. After a full day of hard work, he finally earns enough money to rent a room. However, a gang of beastfolk knocks him down and starts bullying him as their leader picks up his hard-earned money. Light begs him to have mercy, but the cruel wolfman only laughs before knocking him back with a hard uppercut. The wolfman taunts Light for begging for spare change and coldly leaves with his laughing gang. Even the surrounding crowd ignores Light while he lies on the ground, until a kind elf helps him up. Light gets surprised by the many adventurers surrounding him and backs down in shock. Seeing how frightened he is, the elf hugs him to comfort him, even as the passers-by mock her. Shocked that a pretty elf would get dirty for his sake, Light allows her to help him stand. The adventurers then introduce themselves as members of the Concord of Tribes. A beast man named Geru explains that each member represents one of the 9 races, and the elf introduces herself as Sasha. She introduces the rest of her companions: Drago, Diablo, Obero, Nano, Sion, and Santor. With 8 of the 9 races already represented, Light learns that the Concord is searching for a human member to complete their unity of all races in the world. As Geru reaches out his hand to invite him, Light feels stunned that someone actually needs his help, then happily accepts the invitation. Soon, Light begins exploring a cave dungeon called the Abyss with his new group. When a huge worm beast tries to attack him, Geru chops it apart before it can hurt him. But another worm sneaks up behind Light, so Sasha quickly takes it down with her bow. She scolds Light for being careless and reminds him that they are exploring the world's most dangerous dungeon, where he could easily die. She sits down and takes care of his wounds. Noticing how she's acting like his mother, the other party members begin teasing Sasha for spoiling Light so much. Blushing furiously, Sasha tries to act like she doesn't care about Light at all, claiming she's just protecting a fellow member. But as the party ignores her weak excuse, Sasha only gets more defensive. Drago steps in and cheers up Light, praising him for making excellent tea for their team. With his spirits lifted, Light follows the group deeper into the dungeon. When the group suddenly stops at a dead end, Light thinks they are about to take a break, so he begins preparing tea. But to his shock, Drago coldly tells him that they don't need the tea, because they're kicking him out of the party. At first, Light thinks it's just a prank, but Drago harshly repeats his words, leaving him stunned. Geru also tells him that he's out, so Light asks why they're dumping him. Geru replies that their group doesn't need him, and Sasha even expresses disgust at his foolishness. Xion and Nano also mock Light for being pathetic, while the demons in the group feel relieved that they can finally get rid of him. Hurt, Light asks why they would be so cruel after all their kindness earlier. That's when Geru reveals that they were just faking their kindness to lure him into their party. Light wonders why such powerful masters would even need him, and Drago explains that it was only because of his special ability. They thought he might be an overpowered maestro, but it turned out his ability was trash. Light protests that his unlimited gacha ability never seemed useful, and Geru mocks him further, saying that as a talentless human, he is just dead weight. Shocked and devastated, Light realizes they were only using him and that it took them this long to finally dump him. Meanwhile, Sasha feels relieved, saying she can now marry her master instead of ending up with the pathetic human boy. Overwhelmed by this shocking betrayal, Light barely has time to react before Drago tells Geru to finish him off. Light suddenly realizes the danger he's in, but as he sees their hostile stares, He understands they plan to kill him to prevent him from ever getting stronger and seeking revenge later. Jeru slashes his cheek with his claws, and as Light looks at the blood flowing, the rest of the party watches coldly. Light tries to run, but Sasha shoots an arrow at his leg to prevent him from escaping. Struggling in pain, Light collapses, and Geru takes pleasure in his suffering by kicking him hard in the stomach before brutally beating him. Sasha finally stops him, reminding him that Light's death needs to look like an accident. But Geru only raises his claw for a final strike. As Light desperately crawls, wanting to live, Geru finds joy in watching him struggle. Suddenly, Light's hand presses against a teleportation trap. Drago yells for Geru to kill him before it activates, but it's too late. The trap safely teleports Light away before the Beastman can reach him. When Light wakes up elsewhere in the dungeon, he is still badly injured and thinks that any monster could eat him at this point. As the cold chill of the cave reminds him of his loving family, Light begins to cry. He recalls how kind the Concord had seemed at first, and wonders why they became so cruel, their cold expressions haunting him. He feels anger building up from their betrayal and confusion at how he got caught up with such dangerous people. But his confusion quickly turns into fury as he vows revenge. Light forces himself to his feet, determined to cut down all of them, but suddenly feels a cold gaze behind him. Turning around, he sees a level 1 Orthus beast stalking him. Shocked, Light wonders why such a broken monster would be here, and realizes that the teleportation trap sent him to the deepest level of the abyss. As the Orthus approaches, Light desperately spams his unlimited gacha ability, praying for a miracle. At the last moment, his frantic roll summons a huge magic circle that releases a powerful aura. In disbelief, Light watches as the gacha summons an ancient fairy. Recognizing Light as her master, the mysterious fairy easily chops the monster apart before gracefully landing in front of him. With a flick of her hands, she clears the mess and then humbly kneels before Light, healing all his wounds with her magic. She even apologizes for healing him without permission, saying she couldn't bear to see him injured. Light introduces himself, still in disbelief that he managed to summon the most overpowered fairy in the world. The fairy, captivated by his name, repeats it lovingly before swearing complete loyalty to him. Not knowing who she really is, Light asks for her name. She reveals that she is May, the level 99,999 ever-seeking maid, a super ultra-rare card from his gacha. Light can hardly believe it, saying that his gacha only ever produced junk, and there's no way he pulled such a powerful being. But May insists that he completely deserves her, and begs him to accept her. Seeing her pitiful face, Light finally agrees, and May thanks him tearfully. She then asks to examine his gacha ability, revealing that she has the appraisal skill. With his permission, her glowing eyes examine him, and she discovers layers of hidden protections. May explains that the gacha only seemed useless before because Light was in areas with little mana. But here in the abyss, where mana is supercharged, the gacha absorbed it and boosted his chances of pulling rare cards. She explains the full ranking system of the cards, from extra rank and super ultra rare down to normal and error. Light still doesn't fully understand, so May clarifies that on the surface, he could never summon anything good because there wasn't enough mana. She praises him for figuring out the gacha's true potential by entering the abyss, even though it was extremely dangerous. However, when Light admits he only entered because of his party, May listens as he tells her about their betrayal. Crying as he recalls their cruel taunts and abuse, Light vents his pain and says he only wanted to earn an honest living for his family. May is devastated by his story, and when he falls to his knees saying he'll never forgive them, she silently hugs him. In her warm embrace, Light finally calms down. May tells him that she may never fully understand his suffering, but she will use all her power to give the Concord their deserved retribution. Shocked, Light tries to stop her, but she vows to line all of them up in front of him in an instant. Light insists that he doesn't want to abuse her power for revenge. Instead, he vows to grow stronger himself and punish the Concord with his own 2 hands. May thinks he is too kind for his own good, but promises her unwavering support. Encouraged, Light smiles as she returns his smile. With May by his side, Light begins using his gacha again, summoning more powerful tools in the abyss. Fueled by the infinite mana, giant magic circles surround him, summoning ultimate weapons and items. With May watching faithfully at his side, Light begins the first step of his journey, building his empire in the darkness of the abyss, ready to rise stronger than ever before. 3 years have passed since that fateful day, and now Light rules over hundreds of maids inside a grand palace that he built himself. May, as she promised on the day she met him, is always by his side. All the maids seem completely smitten by him, cheering whenever he walks by, their faces lighting up with joy whenever he notices them. While May tries to keep them in line and tells them to behave properly, Light leaves the castle and heads toward the bustling local market. The townspeople immediately recognize him. One of the vendors calls him over for breakfast, while others approach him to complain about a shortage of snack foods in the country. Light smiles and promises to handle the problem soon, but May quickly interrupts, telling him not to concern himself with such trivial matters. She insists that she'll personally ensure the logistics issue is resolved as soon as possible. Listening to her, Light realizes that he will have to create a new logistics system altogether, since the population of his city has grown several-fold over the last 3 years. Curious about his team, he asks May where the rest of his legendary summons are. May replies that Yuki, the beast tamer, is currently busy crafting maps of the areas surrounding the dungeons and scouting the nearby forests for any signs of trouble. Light briefly thinks about all the dangerous monsters that must be roaming through those woods, but knows that none of them would pose a threat to a genius beast tamer like Yuki. May continues, saying that Ellie, the mage, is still hard at work trying to create the complex spells that align with Light's grand plan. Light wonders whether Ellie can truly manage such difficult magic, considering the number of intricate components involved in the spells he asked her to create. He then asks about Naz, the vampire knight, who is excellent at close combat but rather dumb in other areas. May sighs and replies that she assigned Naz to patrol the castle grounds, saying it's the best way to keep her from using her empty brain and getting herself into any kind of trouble. Light laughs softly at that, saying he doesn't really mind her antics. After all, she makes life around the castle far more entertaining. Soon, they return to the castle where Jack, the last of Light's 4 legendary summons, calls out to him, asking if he's ready for some training. May looks slightly annoyed and sternly tells Jack that he should address Light properly as master. But Jack, being the kind of person who doesn't care about such formalities, completely ignores her. Light tells May that it's fine since he considers Jack more like an older brother than a subordinate, and he decides to join him for training. Inside the training grounds, both of them take their stances, and with a sudden burst of speed, Light rushes forward and lands a solid punch right into Jack's rock-hard abs, pushing him backward with surprising force. Jack grins, impressed by Light's power, and comments that any normal adventurer would have died from a hit like that. But since he's built like a tank, he can handle it easily. They clash again, meeting in the middle of the ground as their fists collide with tremendous force before backing away from each other. Light immediately follows up with a rapid barrage of strikes, which Jack dodges skillfully. Meanwhile, Naz continues her patrol through the corridors, humming a tune and moving along cheerfully. Some of the maids stop her, smiling sweetly, and showering her with compliments, saying they feel so safe knowing that she's always on patrol to keep danger away. Delighted by their words, Naz grins happily, exactly as the mischievous maids intended. They decide to play a prank on her and suggest that she should go and check Light's bedroom to make sure everything there is safe and secure. Taking the suggestion completely seriously, Naz nods and rushes toward Light's chambers. But just as she tries to open the door, May steps out from inside the room. Surprised, Naz asks what May was doing in Light's bedroom when he's clearly away training at this time. May immediately blushes and nervously claims that she was simply cleaning the room while he was away. Naz insists that she must inspect the room herself to ensure no threat is hiding inside. Before May can stop her, Naz pushes past and enters the room, only to notice that the bed is ruffled, the pillows dented, and everything looks suspiciously messy. With her usual cluelessness, Naz blurts out that it looks like someone was rolling around on the bed and sniffing the pillows, then innocently asks if May intentionally made it look that way. Thinking quickly, May decides to turn the situation in her favor and confidently replies that it's her special bed-making style. Naz looks impressed and immediately asks if she can learn how to do that as well, but May refuses, claiming it's a personal trade secret. Before Naz can ask more questions, she suddenly remembers that the maids had given her a message to deliver to May. She takes out a parchment and hands it over. Reading it, May realizes that the maids are revolting against her because she always monopolizes the task of cleaning Light's bedroom and never lets them do it. Trying to stay composed, May tells Naz not to worry about it and that she'll handle the issue herself. To keep Naz quiet about what just happened, May hands her some spare coins as a bribe. Ecstatic, Naz skips away happily, heading straight to the market to spend her newfound fortune. After looking through various stalls, she finally decides to treat herself to fluffy pancakes and a glass of fresh milk. Feeling pleased, she marches back toward the castle, where she spots Yuki sitting on a high balcony. She asks whether Yuki's work in the forest is done. Clearly exhausted and unimpressed by Naz's childishness, Yuki holds up the completed map and says she's already finished what Mei requested. Naz congratulates her and returns to her patrol, eventually entering the grand throne room. Seeing it empty, she starts yelling and singing loudly, enjoying the echo. Then, feeling playful, she jumps onto the throne itself, pretending to give royal orders. In her carelessness, she accidentally breaks one of the wings off an angel statue beside the throne. Horrified at what she's done and terrified of Mei's wrath, she hurriedly tries to stick the broken piece back in place before bolting out of the room in a panic. Back in the training grounds, Light and Jack continue sparring until Jack decides they should call it a day and go relax. They head to the enormous bathing hall, where they soak in the warm water. Jack praises Light for learning so quickly and says that with his current power, the monsters in the dungeon would be child's play for him, and only a handful of people on the surface could even challenge him now. However, he warns Light that there are still some out there who would destroy him the moment they got the chance. Light's expression darkens as he remembers the betrayal he faced 3 years ago. He clenches his fists and vows that he won't stop until he gets his revenge. Meanwhile, in her chambers, Mei summons the 4 troublesome maids and reads their letter aloud. The maids freeze in fear, unable to speak. They quickly apologize, claiming that the letter was only meant to show support because they know how overworked Mei is. Mei coldly tells them to stop worrying about her work and focus on their own. She denies their request to clean Light's chamber and instead punishes them by ordering them to clean the long hallway leading to the throne room by hand. The maids gasp in horror, protesting that the hallway is too long, but Mei insists they do it, saying it will keep them busy while she's away on a mission with Light. Later, Naz is outside a shop window, staring at a shiny new gauntlet that she desperately wants but can't afford. While she's daydreaming, Ellie appears and asks what she's looking at. Naz points to the gauntlet and then asks Ellie why she's back so soon, since she was supposed to be supervising the new construction project. Ellie smiles and says the construction is going smoothly, so she decided to sneak in a short break. The two soon start bickering, as usual, arguing about who is closer to Light and who is more important to him. Ellie brags that she's directly involved in Light's revenge plan, and even mentions that she recently had a lovely tea evening with him to discuss progress. She adds with a smug smile that the next time they meet, she plans to have a private dinner with him. Naz pouts and says she wants to have tea with Light too, reminding Ellie that she's an expert in close combat and offering her help anytime. Ellie laughs softly and tells her she'll keep that in mind before walking off, leaving Naz to return to her brainless duty. Back at the castle, the 4 maids who were punished start gossiping again, complaining that Mei is no better than the angry little mustache man from Germany. They wonder if they should go behind her back and tell Light everything, but none of them dare to face her wrath. One maid points out that the reason Light seems so attached to Mei is because she was his very first summon. Another adds that it took Light 2 whole months after summoning Mei to finally summon Yuki, meaning the 2 of them were alone together in the dungeon for that entire time. Overcome by jealousy, the maids start rolling on the floor, ranting nonsense, and even trying to perform voodoo magic to make Mei disappear. Unfortunately for them, Mei overhears the commotion and storms into their room. Cornered, the maids panic and apologize frantically, claiming they were just jealous and didn't mean any of it. Mei crosses her arms and tells them to stop letting their fantasies run wild. During those 2 months, she explains, Light was fully focused on mastering every bit of magic and martial arts he could learn. There was no time for anything else. The maids sigh in relief, thinking they're off the hook, but Mei continues, saying she came here thinking she'd been too harsh on them earlier, only to realize she actually wasn't. So she orders them to clean the entire throne room as well, since they apparently have enough free time to waste on nonsense. Completely defeated, the maids obey her orders and begin cleaning, deciding to keep their mouths shut this time. But while dusting near the throne, one of them accidentally knocks off the same angel wing that Naz broke earlier. The piece falls to the floor, and the maids freeze in terror, horrified at what just happened and fearing Mei's reaction. The next morning, Light enters the dungeon, where Naz, Ellie, and Yuki are already waiting for him. He greets them warmly, but Naz and Ellie immediately start bickering as usual. Suddenly, a monster emerges from the shadows. A hellhound. Light freezes instantly, the color draining from his face as he recognizes the creature. Though he knows he's far stronger now, the trauma from 3 years ago still haunts him, and his blood runs cold at the sight of it. His party, however, reacts very differently. All three of his legendary summons burst out in fury at the sight of the beast that terrifies their master. Naz unsheathes her blade, ready to chop it into tiny pieces, while Ellie asks for permission to eradicate the entire species of hellhounds from existence. Yuki growls that she'd rather find the gates of hell itself and throw this creature straight into its deepest pit. Their combined aura is so overwhelming that the hellhound whimpers and begins backing away in terror, fully aware that it's completely outmatched. Light takes a deep breath, regains his composure, and gently calls his team to stand down. He steps forward, pats the trembling beast on the head, and reminds himself that even a joking command from him could cause his summons to wipe out the entire race of hellhounds from the world. After a moment, he turns back to his team and tells them it's time. They will now head toward the surface and begin their long-awaited plan of revenge. But that's where this episode ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
In a world where every child is blessed by the goddess with a powerful class, warriors, mages, healers, and more, one boy stands out for all the wrong reasons. When Arel turns 10, instead of receiving a divine blessing, he gets nothing. Branded as classless in a world that worships power, everyone thinks he's destined for failure. But what they don't know is that Arel's classless status hides something beyond imagination. He's more powerful than anyone could ever dream of. This is the story of the boy who was born with no class, but infinite power. The story begins with a boy called Arel, sitting with his family for lunch. Arel's father feels surprised by how calm his son is, saying that he couldn't sleep at all, thinking about what hero class his son would get. His mother also exclaims that she is excited, while his older sister feels confident that her brother will outshine all of his classmates. Their mother agrees with her daughter, thinking that her son will attract all the girls with his charm, which makes Arel's sister suddenly worry that he might be taken away from her. However, Arel is more in touch with reality than his family, believing that he will just turn out to be another average guy. In Arel's world, hero classes are gifts from a higher being, granted to youngsters when they turn 10, allowing them to specialize in various skills. Once it is time for the blessing ceremony, all the students gather in school, and a priest begins with the first boy. He puts his hand on the boy's forehead, and the boy quickly sees an image of fire and hammers, confirming that he will be a blacksmith. The boy runs back to his father, beaming with joy, and then the priest starts to work on all of the remaining students one by one. Finally, once it is Arel's turn, his sister says with excitement that he will get a special blessing for sure. Arel walks up to the priest while his family cheers proudly for him. People around them start whispering in envy about Arel, believing that he will get advanced classes like his parents, Farah and Leon, who are known as the Sword Princess and Archmage. Once Arel gets close to the priest, he closes his eyes and focuses his mind, but he fails to see anything. The priest feels surprised that he doesn't have a blessing, and then announces that Arel is a rare case of a classless hero. Arel's family instantly loses their excitement, thinking that they got completely scammed, and that his fate is ruined as a talentless failure. The very next day, Arel begins practicing ordinary swordsmanship. His parents assure him that they will not kick him out of the house. Arel tells them that he is doing fine and just doesn't want to be a freeloader, while his sister promises that she will keep supporting him no matter what. Seeing how concerned his family is, Arel once again reminds them that he has always been practicing swordsmanship with his mother, so he can still be useful despite not having a class. However, deep inside, he thinks that his mother is an awful teacher because she always blows him away in training with her incredible strength. As he finishes his explanation, Arel's mother feels happy that her son is so wise, while his father thinks that he might actually be able to get a real job in the future. Seeing them all fawn over him, Arel gets sick of his family's attention and leaves to train. As he walks into the training ground, Arel finds two swordsman-class students dueling it out with their swords. While fighting, the boys notice Arel and ask what he is doing here without a class. He calmly tells them that he is going to train just like them, but the boys laugh and tell him that they are only having fun with their swords since they don't actually have to train because their class gives them strength automatically. Then they offer to show Arel how much skill they have gained from their class and start sparring once again. While watching them fight, Arel notices how smooth their movements are because of the swordsman class, and then asks them to fight him. One of the boys bursts out laughing at his audacity for challenging them without a class, but Arel simply thinks that he doesn't need one. Feeling insulted, The boy accepts Arel's challenge to teach him a lesson. Before fighting, the boy asks Errol to make sure he still has the protection blessing, which is a temporary shield everyone gains at birth that recharges when the user isn't receiving damage. Errol nods and confirms that he won't lose his life to the boy's powerful attacks and tells him to get ready for the duel. Enraged by his constant taunting, the boy charges at Errol and swings his sword, but to his shock, Errol easily parries it. Then Errol dodges another slash before locking the boy in a parry. The boy's partner thinks he is just having fun and tells him to finish the match quickly, but the boy tells him that Arel isn't so easy to fight. As they continue trading parries, the boy realizes that he can't beat Arel on his own, so he cheats and asks his partner to gang up on him. The other boy jumps at Arel from behind, but he senses the attack and dodges it at the last second. Watching the two boys argue with each other, Errol realizes that their class doesn't help them with teamwork, and he swoops in to finish them both off. The boys notice him coming, but suddenly Errol vanishes from their sight before appearing under one of them and knocking him clean out with a jaw punch. As his teammate falls, the other boy rushes to attack Errol, but he trips over his own friend, giving Errol the chance to knock him out as well. With both boys on the ground, Errol calmly announces that he won the fight, but they get angry and claim that he attacked them while their guard was down. As they ask Errol for a rematch, he easily agrees. However, before it starts, a boy behind them warns the others not to try it, reminding them that they can't make cheap excuses like that if they fail on the battlefield. After the red-haired boy tells them they're a disgrace to all swordsmen, one of the two boys tries talking back to him, but his friend reminds him of the red-haired boy's high status. The redhead then walks up to Arel and asks if he is the son of the sword princess Farah. When Arel nods, the boy praises him for learning some solid swordsmanship from his mother. However, he reminds Errol that the two swordsmen he took down are just inexperienced children. Then, pointing his sword at him, he challenges him to a real fight. The boy declares that he will prove the real power of the swordsman class, while the two other boys whisper and wonder if he is the son of the village security captain, Evan. The boy confirms his identity, and Errol remembers that his father used to contact his mother to hunt monsters. Looking at him, Errol thinks that the cute boy looks nothing like his father, and wonders if he will also turn into a gruff-looking man when he grows older. The boy's shoulders start trembling as he praises his father for being a powerful swordsman and wise mentor. He says that it's unfair that despite his father's great qualities, Errol's mother unfairly stole away his father's title of the village's strongest swordsman. At his jealous words, Errol realizes that the boy is just taking out his frustration on him because he hates his mother. The redhead feels embarrassed to get called out, but asks Errol if he thinks the same. Errol calmly confirms that his mother is indeed the strongest person in their village, but the boy insists that he inherited the best swordsman talent from his father, so he will defeat Errol to prove that his family is superior. After calming down, the boy tells Errol that he already became a swordsman a year ago and has been training hard under his father ever since. With his dedicated practice, the boy thinks he has no chance of losing. However, Arel reminds him that he also received guidance from his powerful mother, so he's not going to lose against him either. Both boys raise their swords to begin the fight, and the redhead attacks first. Arel parries his attack and strikes back, and the two engage in a fierce battle. Watching them exchange blows, the other two boys feel shocked that Arel is keeping up with the redhead despite being classless. Watching the boy swing his sword, Arel admits that he is much stronger than the other two, but he notices that his moves are driven by anger. Arel waits for him to slip up and then attacks once he gets an opening. However, the boy suddenly unleashes a twin slice skill, which drives Arel back into a wall. The redhead feels surprised that his first slice was blocked, but he notices that Arel got injured by the second. Finally losing his calm, Errol asks about the boy's ability, and the boy explains that it is a swordsman class skill that can't be blocked by someone classless. However, Errol feels determined that he can learn to block it with enough practice, and the redhead praises his resilience. A few days later, Errol's sister watches him snore late in the morning and tries to wake him up with a kiss. He gets up before she can touch him, coldly knocking her away with his head. Errol's sister gets offended and demands an apology kiss as he leaves his room to get breakfast. Their mother smiles and serves breakfast, and the family sits down to eat together. Errol's sister asks him if he is going to train again, and he nods. This angers her, and she tells him to take it easy and let her support him. However, Errol ignores her and gets up to leave. His sister then wonders why he has been going out to train daily ever since he returned home beaten into a pulp. Farah reassures her daughter that Errol will be fine, explaining that they have a secret she doesn't know. She takes her outside and opens a chest full of broken swords, revealing just how hard Errol has been training the past few days. While his sister feels surprised, Errol's mother feels happy that her boy got inspired after dueling with other kids. Errol's determination also cheers up his sister, but she still wants to create a world where classless people like him aren't discriminated against. While her mother smiles at her noble goal, meanwhile, in a forest, RL is whacking at a training target on a tree before backing up for an attack. He then unleashes a twin slice, just like the redhead, and feels satisfied with his power. While RL thinks getting beaten up by the redhead was worth it, a goblin silently stalks him in some bushes. The goblin suddenly jumps out to attack with its club, but Errol turns around and defeats it with a twin slice, feeling proud of his skill's power. Suddenly, a large monster roars behind him. He turns around, intending to report the monster's appearance to village security, but he stops after hearing a panicked scream. Finding the scream familiar, Errol quickly realizes that he doesn't have time to call security before that person gets hurt. He grabs his sword's handle and runs into the forest, mentally assuring himself that he will be fine. Once he gets close to the source, Errol peeks from a bush and finds the redhead with a bloodied arm. Then he notices a giant hobgoblin looming over the boy, and wonders why it appeared. Errol then realizes that the redhead was also practicing like him, and defeated some wild goblins, which must have attracted the leading hobgoblin. While the hobgoblin backs the boy into a corner, Errol gets behind it and prepares to launch his attack from the best angle. Errol takes a deep breath to prepare, and the redhead thinks it's all over for him. The hobgoblin raises its club for the finishing blow, but suddenly, RL cuts it down with a twin slice attack. After the monster falls to the ground, Errol thinks that he has finally mastered the technique's footwork. The redhead tries to walk, but stumbles into Errol's arms. Noticing that the boy lost his protection blessing, Errol asks if he has any holy water to heal his wounds. The boy silently looks at his smashed water bottle on the ground, so RL offers him his own holy water. After he drinks it, his wounds disappear, and the redhead feels annoyed by how strong RL has gotten. Errol notices that his energy has returned, and the boy thanks him for his water before asking again about his powerful skill. Errol calmly reminds him that it's just a twin slice, but the boy asks how he learned it without a class, knowing that ordinary people can't learn special skills. Errol explains that he pushed his training to the limits for this one. The redhead feels confused, so Errol explains further that he learned the skill by adjusting to its timing and footwork. Then Errol tells the redhead that he was the most important resource since he helped him understand the skill after beating him up dozens of times with it. While the boy feels overwhelmed by this information, Errol tells him that he's been training the twin slice skill specifically to defeat him in their rematch. Feeling impressed by Errol's dedication, the redhead accepts his rematch challenge. Errol asks him if he's sure, but the boy tells him that it's the least he can do after he saved him and healed his wounds. Errol feels surprised that he knows how to repay favors, and the boy feels insulted by his low opinion of him. Soon, both boys get ready with their swords and begin their duel with a twin slice at the same time. While feeling shocked that RL blocked both of the slices, the redhead suddenly gets hit by a surprise attack. He wonders what it was, and RL tells him that he added a third slice. The redhead reminds RL that it's called twin slice, but RL explains that because he didn't get a predefined skill from a class, he can mold his technique into whatever he wants. He reveals to the boy that this was his first time successfully using the third strike, which leaves him even more frustrated. The redhead thinks that a swordsman's skill isn't supposed to lose to anyone, so Errol tells him that he'll prove it in another match. Both boys raise their swords again, and the redhead calms down, thinking that he has a speed advantage over Errol. As both of them unleash their twin slices, the redhead watches carefully for Errol's third slice. However, the third slice's speed still catches him off guard and knocks him down despite trying to block it. Errol points his sword at the defeated boy and tells him that this result was only to be expected. The redhead asks him why his third strike is so fast, so Errol explains that he actually learned the trick from him. Errol reveals that he controls his first two strikes to be slower, and then applies all of his strength to the third strike to catch his opponent off guard. Feeling completely outclassed, the redhead gnashes his teeth in defeat, and Errol walks away victorious. A few days later, as Errol's family is having dinner, Farah reveals that Evan's son has left to train at Brea. Surprised by this news, Errol asks what Bria is, and his mother explains that it is the City of Swords. She tells him that she used to train at a guild there before her marriage, and Errol feels excited to visit the city and explore his full potential as a classless hero. 5 years later, an older Errol was traveling to Brea City on a carriage. As they passed through a dense forest, the carriage driver informed everyone that they would soon reach Brestia after climbing a hill. Inside the carriage, a woman asked her fellow passengers if they were all headed to the same place. A barbarian swordsman responded coldly, clearly annoyed. The woman, confused by his tone, asked why he was so angry. The barbarian pointed at her revealing outfit and called it trashy, but the woman quickly defended herself, explaining that wearing less clothing was better for her dual swordsman class. Both swordsmen began arguing, their tempers flaring, until the carriage driver interrupted to comment on how powerful their advanced classes must be. But suddenly, the driver stopped the carriage in alarm. A horde of wild orcs had appeared in front of them. He turned to the two swordsmen and told them to prove their power. However, all their earlier bravado vanished as the orc king stood up before them. Terrified, the two swordsmen froze. A commoner lady inside the carriage grabbed a boy's arm in fear, but the boy shoved her away and ran for his life. The woman followed him in panic, and soon even the carriage driver decided to flee. But Errol stayed calm. Quietly stepping forward, he drew his sword and dashed straight into the horde of orcs. The driver stopped in disbelief as he watched Errol tear through the monsters with incredible speed. He recognized Errol's blink dash skill immediately, but as more orcs surrounded the young man, the driver thought Errol wouldn't make it out alive. Then, before anyone could blink, Errol spun like a tornado, slicing through all the orcs in one swift, graceful motion. The driver was left speechless. He realized that Errol's technique was the legendary blade dance, a skill known to belong only to the Sword Princess, a female class. How could Errol, a man, use that technique? In front of the stunned onlookers, Errol dodged the Orc King's massive weapon, jumped over its head, and drove his sword straight through its skull. The monstrous creature fell lifelessly to the ground. After finishing the battle, Errol returned calmly to the carriage and asked the driver to take him to Brea. The driver was astonished by his strength, saying Errol was already too powerful. But Errol simply replied that he wanted to get even stronger. A young passenger, excited by what he had witnessed, asked Errol about his class. To everyone's shock, Errol revealed that he was completely classless. It turned out that 5 years earlier, Errol had shown his mother the twin slice skill he had learned from a red-haired warrior. His mother thought she was dreaming, but Errol explained that he could learn skills even without having a class. Then he asked her to teach him the Sword Princess techniques before he left for Brea to train more seriously. His mother had been starstruck by his talent and couldn't stop bragging to the rest of the family. Errol's dream ended abruptly when the carriage driver woke him up. They had arrived in Brestia. As he stepped out, Errol noticed many swordsmen around him, including several advanced ones. Curious, he asked the carriage driver about his own class. The driver acted modest, claiming to be just a normal man, but Errol pointed out that the driver had perfectly recognized his swordsman techniques, which meant he was strong himself. Feeling caught, the driver admitted that he was actually an advanced holy knight. Errol asked why someone so powerful was driving carriages, and the man explained that whenever he got tired of battle, he took breaks doing simple jobs. Errol nodded, understanding that even great warriors needed rest. Before leaving, the driver advised Errol to join a sword guild to start building his career. He told him about the many tournaments in Brea where he could win good money and reputation, but warned that he'd need guild membership to participate. Errol agreed, eager to test his skills against stronger opponents, and thanked the man. After the driver left, Errol entered the bustling city and found two guilds recruiting new members. Calvar's guild for knight swordsmen, and another guild open to everyone. Just as he was deciding, a girl suddenly ran toward him, causing her to fall flat on her face. Amazed, she wondered how he dodged her, without even looking. Concluding that he must be powerful enough to sense her movements, she quickly asked if he was interested in joining a guild, and when Errol nodded, she launched into a desperate sales pitch for her own. She even handed him a contract, but Errol simply walked away without saying a word. Frustrated, the girl grabbed his belt to stop him. Errol told her bluntly that she looked too desperate, and that her guild was probably weak if she had to beg for members. Trying to save face, the girl introduced herself as Lilia, and offered to go on a date with him if he joined. Errol calmly replied that he wasn't interested, leaving her speechless. He thought she reminded him of his older sister, arrogant, flat-chested, and overly confident. When he asked Lilia about the strongest guild in Bria, she got angry at the insult but controlled herself. She told him that the most powerful guild was Black Blade, boasting 8 A-ranked swordsmen. She even gave him directions to their headquarters. Errol went straight there and approached the entrance. A guard asked his business, and Errol said he wanted to join. The guard told him to take a test and led him to a registration line. When it was his turn, the receptionist explained that only advanced classes could apply. Errol said he was classless, and the man burst out laughing, telling him to leave. The other swordsmen in line whispered among themselves, mocking him. Calmly, Errol asked to take the test anyway, confident he could pass, but the receptionist refused. Rules were rules. As the tension rose, a group of A-ranked swordsmen entered the hall, their presence commanding everyone's attention. Errol sighed and decided to try his luck elsewhere. He visited several other guilds, but each one rejected him without even letting him demonstrate his skills. Feeling discouraged, he remembered the letter of recommendation his mother had given him before he left home, a letter meant to help him join her old guild. He had dismissed it back then, thinking she was being overprotective, but now he realized she had known this would happen. As Errol headed toward his mother's guild, Lilia appeared again, still begging him to join hers. He ignored her, but she followed him through the city, promising to do anything if he helped her save her guild, even lick his boots if she had to. Errol walked away in disgust as onlookers stared, and Lilia screamed that she would never give up. When he finally found his mother's old guild, Lilia suddenly caught up to him and pointed proudly at the large building. She said he was welcome to join. It was her guild, Dragon Fang. Errol was surprised that such a big guild could be struggling, and Lilia explained that they had fallen from their past glory. Still, she was determined to restore the guild's reputation, founded by none other than the legendary Dual Swords King. Hearing that name, Errol remembered that his mother had once been a member of Dragon Fang in her youth, so he agreed to check it out. Inside, Lilia led him to a seat. Suddenly, a drunk man stumbled out from behind a sofa. It was her father, the Dual Swords King himself. Lilia scolded him for drinking, reminding him that the doctor had forbidden it and that they couldn't afford alcohol anyway, but her father ignored her and told Errol to leave, saying the guild was doomed. Errol noticed the man's missing arm and realized why his fighting days were over. Lilia sadly explained that her father had once been one of the top swordsmen in Brie, but his career ended after losing his arm. She assumed Errol would refuse to join such a failing guild, but to her surprise, he agreed. Overjoyed, Lilia quickly brought him a contract to sign. As he handed it back, she noticed his class field was blank. At first, she thought it was a joke, but when Errol showed her his official certificate, she froze, then drew her sword in anger, threatening to give him a deceased class if he didn't leave immediately. Errol asked why she was reacting that way, and she yelled that she needed real swordsmen, not classless nobodies. Still furious from earlier humiliation, she was about to throw him out when another woman entered, Rihanna. Lilia immediately ran to Rihanna, crying that a classless scammer was trying to trick her. But Rihanna froze when she saw Errol. To his confusion, she seemed to recognize him. She reminded him that they were from the same hometown and had sparred as children. Errol didn't remember at first, but when she mentioned they had met 5 years ago, he realized she was the red-haired boy he had fought back then. Rihanna blushed as she explained she was Captain Evans's daughter. She had just looked different then. Errol apologized for not recognizing her and, perhaps unintentionally, complimented her appearance, saying he'd never forget a beauty like her. Embarrassed, Rihanna's face turned bright red. Lilia asked her if Errol was really the same classless boy who had defeated her, and when Rihanna nodded, Lilia couldn't believe it. Rihanna, still bitter from her old defeat, challenged Errol to a rematch. They went to the training ground, where Lilia acted as referee. Rihanna began with her twin slice attack, and Errol thought he could easily block it, but the blade slipped through his guard and struck him. Rihanna dropped her sword and explained that it was 5 times heavier than normal, so his counter technique wouldn't work. Her brute swordsman class also gave her enhanced attack power. Errol was impressed by her progress, but realized that fighting her head-on would lead to defeat. Rihanna kept attacking, determined to prove herself. Errol noticed how she was revealing her fighting style and asked why. She said she didn't care. Beating him was worth it. Smiling, Errol told her she couldn't hit him with her speed. Rihanna charged again, but her strikes hit nothing but air. Errol had vanished. A moment later, he appeared behind her and struck her neck lightly. Shocked, she realized he had used the shadow step, a supreme swordsman technique. Errol explained it casually, saying it was just about moving fast. Rihanna found his explanation irritating, but he assured her it had taken years of practice. The duel continued until Errol realized his attacks weren't piercing her defense barrier. Rihanna smirked, explaining that her brute class also gave her boosted defense. She tried to land another hit, but Errol countered smoothly and disarmed her, using a counter technique he said he learned from his mother. Rihanna fell to her knees, defeated. Lilia declared Errol the winner. Rihanna felt crushed, tears forming in her eyes as Errol praised her growth, but admitted he was still stronger. She burst into tears and ran off, while Lilia yelled at Errol for making her cry. Confused, Errol insisted he was only complimenting her. From inside, they could hear Rihanna sobbing about losing even after 5 years of hard training. Later, Lilia accepted Errol as a member of Dragonfang, her tone suddenly cheerful and respectful. Errol noticed her complete change in attitude but ignored it. When he asked why the guild was in decline, Lilia awkwardly whispered that they were in debt, a huge one. She explained that they could pay it off by winning an upcoming tournament, but they needed at least 3 members to participate. Errol asked about Rihanna, and Lilia said that when Rihanna first arrived in Brea, every big guild had rejected her, but Lilia's father had taken her in. Out of gratitude, Rihanna had stayed loyal to them ever since. Errol nodded and smiled, confident they could easily pay off the debt by winning. But Lilia was nervous. The tournament allowed up to 5-member teams, and they only had 3. Despite her worries, Errol was thrilled. He said that fighting powerful opponents was the reason he came to Brea in the first place. The next day, Errol wakes up in a strange bedroom, but quickly remembers that he's now living at the Dragonfang Guild. After stepping out of his room, he greets Lilia and Rihanna, who are sitting at the table. Lilia smiles and asks if he slept well, and Errol nods, admitting that it's been a long time since he's slept in a proper bed. As they talk, he notices that Rihanna is completely silent and wonders if she's still upset about losing to him. Before he can ask, Lilia interrupts his thoughts with exciting news. She reveals that they're finally eligible for the guild tournament. Bursting with enthusiasm, she proudly announces that Dragonfang is officially signed up and ready to compete. Curious, Errol asks if the prize money will be enough to pay off their debts, and Lilia nods, explaining the competition rules. She tells him that to win, their team must eliminate all members of the opposing guild. Hearing this, Rihanna looks uneasy, worried that they'll be at a disadvantage since they have fewer members. However, Lilia remains optimistic, pointing out that it's unlikely they'll face any A-ranked swordsmen and that they have 2 B-ranked swordsmen of their own. Errol gets confused by the ranking system, and Rihanna scoffs, calling him ignorant. Lilia then patiently explains that swordsmen are ranked from D up to A, depending on their strength. She adds that there are only 20 ranked swordsmen in the entire city of Brea, and that both she and Rihanna are ranked B. Even though Errol managed to defeat Rihanna, Lilia doesn't suspect him of being ranked, since the power gap between B and A ranks is enormous. Suddenly, Lilia remembers that the battle pairings for the competition are about to be announced and rushes out to check them. After she leaves, Rihanna gets up to go train, and Errol stops her, asking if she's really a power bladesman. When she confirms it, he asks whether she has other skills aside from her main class. Rihanna explains that she has a unique ability called Guts, which enhances her protective barrier. Intrigued, Errol asks her to teach it to him. Taking her by surprise, he grabs her hands, and Rihanna blushes, thinking he's being romantic, only for Errol to suddenly ask her to beat him up with her sheathed sword. She stares at him in disbelief as he insists that they can grow closer together through this kind of training. Embarrassed, Rihanna refuses, saying she's not into anything that weird, but Errol quickly clarifies that he's trying to learn her guts ability by enduring attacks. He believes that if the ability increases endurance, then the best way to learn it is to get beaten up repeatedly. Rihanna reminds him that her skills can't simply be copied, they're blessings from the goddess herself. However, Errol points out that he managed to learn both the twin slice and shadow skills through observation, and Rihanna falls silent. She eventually agrees to take him to the training grounds. When they arrive, Errol asks to try lifting her heavy sword. Rihanna is shocked when he effortlessly draws it from its sheath, amazed by his strength. Errol explains that his strength comes from countless hours of training and determination, and he's confident that he can learn the guts ability if he keeps pushing himself. Seeing his dedication, Rihanna finally acknowledges his effort and agrees to train him, warning that she won't go easy on him. Flustered when he compliments her, saying he's glad to have such a strong woman from his hometown, she readies her sword and begins the harsh training session. While they train, Lilia suddenly rushes into the field in a panic. She's nearly in tears as she announces that their first opponent in the tournament will be none other than the Black Blade Guild, the strongest guild in the entire city. Knowing that their leader George is a ruthless and manipulative man, she fears that he'll show them no mercy. Despite that, she steels herself and decides that they'll fight with everything they have. As she speaks, she notices Rihanna repeatedly hitting Errol and assumes they're fighting because of bad teamwork. Rihanna quickly clarifies that it's just training, but Lilia doesn't believe her, thinking Rihanna is venting her frustration. Exhausted and bruised, Errol groans about being hungry, but Lilia insists he take some holy water first. Days later, the tournament finally begins. Errol is awestruck by the Grand Colosseum and the enormous cheering crowd. Around them, spectators whisper about the upcoming match, excited to see two famous guilds face off. Most, however, bet on Black Blade to win, mocking Dragon Fang as a weak, debt-ridden guild. Lilia fumes, ready to shout back at them, but Rihanna stops her. When Errol learns about the betting pools, he's surprised. While Lilia smirks mischievously upon hearing that their odds are 20-1, Errol marvels at the number, but Lilia snaps, reminding him that those odds exist because everyone expects them to lose. Still, she sees this as an opportunity. If they somehow manage to win, they could make an enormous profit. To everyone's shock, she reveals that she mortgaged her own house and bet all of their life savings on themselves. Rihanna worries they're taking too big of a risk, but Lilia argues that they're already at rock bottom, so they have nothing to lose. Moments later, George approaches, praising Lilia for protecting her late father's guild so fiercely. His tone is polite, but his words drip with mockery. He mentions the classless hero she recruited and pretends to feel sorry for her guild's decline. He smugly admits that he arranged the match himself so the public could enjoy watching the old strongest guild fall to the new one. George jokes that he even gave her a chance to make money off the bets, laughing because he knows she stands no chance against his A-ranked swordsman. Furious, Lilia vows they'll win no matter what. After he leaves, Errol comments on how George disguises his insults with sweet words. Soon, the announcer begins introducing the teams, and the crowd roars as the first match is called. Blackblade's Geo versus Dragonfang's classless Errol. As Errol steps into the arena, the spectators whisper, mocking Dragonfang for sending a weakling to be humiliated. Geo, confident and bored, draws his weapon. When the match begins, he instantly teleports in front of Errol and stabs him, but his opponent vanishes. It was only a shadow clone. Geo smirks and attacks again, but that too turns out to be a fake. He soon finds himself surrounded by 3 Errols, all charging at once. He cuts them down easily, only to be caught off guard when the real Errol appears behind him and defeats him with one precise blow. The crowd gasps as Geo falls, stunned that a classless man could create 3 shadows. Errol tells him that his mother can create 5 without breaking a sweat. The announcer declares Errol the victor, and the audience erupts into cheers. Lilia jumps up to celebrate, while Rihanna stares, speechless that he just took down an A-rank swordsman so effortlessly. As medics carry Geo away, Errol quietly reflects that he still needs more practice before mastering Geo's critical strike skill. The crowd buzzes with disbelief that a classless fighter could dominate so easily. Even George begins to feel nervous. The next opponent rushes at Errol with a sword, but Errol blocks every attack and finishes him off with a twin slice. His next challenger tries using close combat daggers, but Errol slips behind him like a ghost and knocks him unconscious. Lilia and Rihanna can barely believe he's won 3 straight matches. When Rihanna asks why Lilia isn't fighting, she laughs nervously and says there's no need. Errol is clearly their star. As the next fight begins, Errol faces a shield bearer. The man sneers at Errol, saying that a classless hero shouldn't be able to match him. Errol admits that he can't break through his shield yet, but says he'll wear him down little by little. The man laughs and feints an attack with his sword before suddenly charging with his shield. However, Errol predicts the move perfectly and counters using the foresight skill he learned earlier. The blow knocks the shield away, shocking the opponent, who realizes Errol learned it just by watching. When the shield bearer attacks again, Errol picks up his shield, dodges, and defeats him with the same counter technique. The crowd bursts into cheers as the announcer declares his 4th win. At this point, the tournament organizers, suspicious of Errol's power, demand to verify his class. Errol calmly hands over his class card, and the announcer inserts it into the crystal orb for inspection. When the light confirms that he truly is classless, the entire arena falls silent in awe. Even Rihanna begins to believe they might actually win, while Lilia regrets not betting even more money. She thinks about how much Errol must have trained over the past 5 years and starts daydreaming about marrying him to rebuild the guild together. Errol, feeling uneasy about her dark aura, tries to ignore her strange expression. Finally, the announcer introduces Black Blade's final fighter, Master Masamune. Errol notices his opponent's katana, and Rihanna gasps. He's a rare samurai-class swordsman. Lilia realizes that he's Blackblade's secret ace, one who's never fought publicly before. As the match begins, Masamune calmly grips his sheathed sword, exuding confidence. Errol feels immense pressure from his composure. Seeing Errol hesitate, Masamune smirks and says he's just waiting for him to step closer so he can unleash his ultimate technique. Unfazed, Errol walks forward, saying they can't just stand like trees forever. He wants to see Masamune's strongest move. Masamune chuckles, warning that Errol won't have time to react if he does. Still, Errol continues until they're face to face. As tension fills the arena, both fighters hold their breath. Then, Masamune strikes in a blur of light, but Errol vanishes right before the blade hits. Shocked, Masamune realizes Errol moved faster than his eyes could follow. Suddenly, Errol appears behind him and compliments his speed, adding that his master was far faster. He unleashes a devastating attack called Piercing Tempest, overwhelming Masamune and knocking him to the ground. Lilia and Rihanna recognize the move. It's the finishing technique of the legendary Sword Princess. The crowd explodes in disbelief as the announcer declares Dragon Fang the winner. As gamblers scream in frustration over their lost bets, Lilia and Rihanna rush to celebrate. Lilia tries to hug Errol, but he instinctively dodges, letting her fall, saying it's just a reflex from training with his sister. She quickly forgets her embarrassment, grinning about their newfound fortune. Rihanna opens her arms awkwardly, and when Errol notices, she blushes furiously. He smiles and tells her he'd like to hug her without the armor, flustering her even more. When Lilia offers to fulfill his desires, he dodges again, letting her crash to the floor. Meanwhile, George clenches his teeth in rage, determined to avenge this humiliating defeat. That was episode 3. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and stay tuned for what happens next in Dragon Fang's journey.